The snakening has finally begun. A lot of people expecting some of these big teams to split up after underperforming, and it's finally started. Yomzo and Age is announcing they are looking for new duos, but who are they going to play with? Could it involve Pete, Poyo, Clicks and Higgs, Rapid and Threats? There's a lot of theories going around. I'll talk about who's split up and who I think could actually become new duos going forward. I also want to talk about the $100,000 E-Razor Solo LAN that unfortunately had to be cancelled early, but was still a phenomenal tournament. It was our first chance to see the new Storm Surge in solos, and a lot of pros weren't too happy. We also had the NA Duo Finals I want to recap, being won by a super underrated team, Clicks and Higgs almost winning it, and again, what the pros think about this new Storm Surge in duos. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. This is not how I expected to start today's video, but we have a potential snakening underway. Now, I don't really know what this snakening is for because we don't even know what's next. We've just had our last Div Cup on NA, but we now have Yomzo and Aegis splitting up. They are both looking for a duo, and normally how this goes is you have one of the pros start reaching out to other people, finding a good option, and then dropping their existing teammate and announcing they're playing with them. Like, you know, like Aegis tweets out, me and Cold running it up for all of 2026. But that hasn't happened here. Yomzo and Aegis have just straight up split up, and it looks like neither of them have a duo because they've both tweeted out they're looking for a duo. This is quite unusual, but I think it's more because of the circumstances of what's going on right now. Again, what for? What are we looking for a duo for? We're assuming we're going to get duo tournaments during the Simpsons season, but we don't really know. It's probably worth just waiting another week until we know what's going on and can figure that out and then go from there. But at the same time, it also makes the most sense to try to look for a new teammate right now because there is nothing going on. There's nothing to miss. And if vibes aren't good, Yomzo and Aegis aren't really placing as good as people would expect. Again, we haven't ever seen them play together before, but separately as individual players, they're two of the greatest on NA. They don't really have the placements to show for it over the last few weeks. So a lot of people, myself included, were expecting this team to split up, but I kind of thought it would lead to a snakening of other people coming out and we'd figure out who their teammates are. Now, by the time this video goes live, I always film these and post them before I go to bed. Things might have changed. I will pin a comment down below if anyone announces their new duo. Some of the theories right now are Aegis and Cold. A lot of people have been expecting that duo for a while now. I know you're probably thinking, but how does that work? Because Yomzo's the IGL and Aegis is the fragger. Well, Aegis announced when duos first got announced that he wanted to be an IGL unless he was going to play with Yomzo or Peterbot. Those were the only two IGLs he would play under. Otherwise, he wanted to IGL. So there is the potential that Aegis tries to find a really crazy fragger like Cold, but honestly, Cold and Richie, while also not really getting the placements you would expect from two phenomenal players, they've said multiple times they're just really enjoying playing together. They're great friends. They're not taking things too seriously right now. It's off season. There's no FNCS. They're not really that locked in. They're having fun. Some people theorizing the Yomzo now might end up with Clicks or Higgs. I'm not really sure how I feel about this as well. Clicks and Higgs are looking really solid together right now. They did almost just win the Div Cup final today. I'll recap that in a little bit. They're looking solid right now, and I think Clicks really appreciates playing with Higgs because he can play on stream. They don't have comms muted. They run a delay, but it's a normal amount. It feels like Clicks is starting to get back into his stride of, you know, still caring about competitive and placing well, but also making more content around competitive. And also, Clicks always does a lot worse during off seasons because he has so many other things on. He just played the Opens tournaments from California because he's doing Make-A-Wish stuff with Mr. Beast. He's streamed from like 8 different setups in the last month, it feels like. So I think Higgs knows that as well, but I do think that duo probably will stick together. And if they do split, I don't know if it will be to go play with Yomzo. Obviously, you know, the vibes kind of ended not so great there after Globals. A lot of team blaming going on, a lot of drama there. So I don't really see that happening. Peterbot waited on this when he was on Faxity stream, actually talking about how he thinks eventually Higgs is going to queue up FNCS with Rapid. Some people now saying Rapid and Threats might get in the mix here. We might see Rapid and Aegis, or we could see like Rapid Yomzo, Threats Yomzo, things like that. Again, I don't really know how this one's going to shake up right now because it's not FNCS, because there isn't anything to really switch for right now. There's a lot of teams out there who maybe they're not placing as well. Their vibes aren't great, but they're thinking, hey, why would I burn bridges and ruin the vibes of my existing teammate for nothing? So I don't know if this will turn into a huge snaking and a big domino effect, but I wanted to make sure I at least covered it so you guys know what's going on. Before we talk about duos though, I want to talk about solos. And yes, the Solo Series Finals is taking place today for NAEU. I'll be live on my Twitch and YouTube channel if you want to swing by. It's going to be super exciting. But we had a $100,000 E-Razor Solo LAN today. This is all the best players in Europe. They had online qualifiers. A few players were invited and it was absolutely stacked. But unfortunately, it did run into some issues. This was meant to be an 8-game tournament. After 6 games, things were running really, really smooth. The tournament was running great. And then Epic Games started to have some issues. This wasn't a problem with the tournament itself. It wasn't a problem with the PCs at the event, but Epic Games started having queue bugs all across the board, and this ruined the tournament. The tournament organizers tried to come up with some kind of a compromise where they did a vote where basically they voted where if any player in the bottom 50 for the last 2 games didn't load in, they wouldn't restart the game, but if someone in the top 50 didn't load in, they would restart, just to try to get the tournament underway. People voted no against this. They tried 2 more queues to get a full lobby, and unfortunately they couldn't, so after 2 hours of waiting, they decided to void the last 2 games. But at the same time, as frustrating as this is, there was still 6 games. 6 solid games where everyone had the same opportunity to do well and pop off, so I don't want to sound like I'm trying to take this away from the winner, who was Cammy. He played phenomenal. He actually played phenomenal Fortnite throughout this whole tournament, and he did come out on top. Yes, the last couple games, things could have been different. Maybe Teeny lands on Cammy because he knows he needs to beat him to win the tournament. Flixie was popping off. He had some huge games, jumped up 5 places in game 6. He had the momentum to maybe jump over and overtake Cammy. Yes, all these things could happen, but in the 6 games that were played, which is the normal tournament structure, Cammy popped off and played phenomenal. I'm confident with 2 more games, Cammy still would have won because his gameplay was amazing. And one of the main things for this was Cammy adapted to the new surge. And I know you might be sick of hearing it, but we are on the new surge now, the net damage surge. Damage done minus damage taken. There's been a lot of people complaining about it. The first time we got to see it was in the Victory Cup format. So how does it play out in a regular tournament where elims are worth something? And elims were worth a lot in this tournament. Each win was 65 and elims were worth 4 points, which is a lot. And unfortunately, it wasn't too great. I'm not just saying that from my perspective. From a viewer perspective, the early game is actually really quite exciting because, you know, when they get tags, it feels like it matters even more. Yes, there's way less trading. The end games get kind of crazy because you'll hit 1 rotate and all of a sudden you get hit for 100 and now you're below and you got to fight, and it makes things exciting. But the mid games are a little bit quiet. As we talked about, it doesn't really incentivize fighting at all. If anything, even if you take a fight and win it, you can still go below. In game 1, we had Skivvy, who had 4 eliminations, the highest of any player in the lobby, and he was below Surge, which just doesn't really sound right. And it led to, you know, mid games being a lot of just staring at cones. Now, the pros themselves weren't super happy. If you look on Twitter, there's a lot of pros complaining about the new surge in solos and in duos, which again, I'll talk about the duos in a second. But Cammy adapted extremely well. He was landing at the bridge. He got a bunch of loot, went up on the very top of the bridge, built like a platform, got some early tags, and then just storm or water rotated throughout the whole game, and then played flawless end games like Cammy does. Didn't get a bunch of elims, didn't pop off and go crazy, just good, consistent Fortnite. Now, Cammy is, if not the LAN GOAT, one of the LAN GOATs now. So many insane performances. He has now won a Globals. He's now won Esports World Cup, come top 3 in multiple other lands as well, came second to SETI at DreamHack, now won this event. Cammy just does not crumble under LAN pressure. He is genuinely insane. Teeny, unfortunately, in second place, still played phenomenal. He was in first place throughout the whole tournament, but in the last 2 games, well, 2 of his last 3 games, really dropped down the leaderboard. Still holding it down for controller players. Teeny's form right now is insane. Struggled throughout trios. As soon as duos has come back, Teeny has just looked like a different beast. 300 points is insanely impressive. Then we had Flixie in third, who, like I said, was really bringing it back towards the end. Pixie in fourth, who was in that top 3 for pretty much the entire tournament. And then a pretty underrated round out for the top 5. We had Twy closing it out in the top 5. It was a really fun tournament to watch, and it has me super excited for the solo series finals taking place today. I am a little bit worried for which pros are going to be able to adapt to the surge. There is a lot more zone RNG now. Dropping mid-map is obviously a huge advantage, but Cammy dropping on the edge of the map still made things work with a really good strategy. So it's not a completely throwaway tournament, but so far the surge hasn't been really well received. A lot of you guys have been asking for my predictions on the solo series finals, and I'm sorry I haven't given them. It's really hard to predict solos in general, especially when things are changing as much as how Surge affects the game. Right now on both regions, we have a lot of duos dropping at the same POIs, which I don't imagine they're going to be fighting very often. I liked what Eraser did. Eraser actually made every single player in the tournament wear the same skin and actually got all of them into a Discord call where they obviously couldn't communicate with each other, and then they could have admins monitor who they were talking to midway through the tournament. Obviously, way easier to do that at a LAN event than an online tournament, but I really think if Fortnite wants to bring back set lobby solos, some kind of a system where pros pick maybe like 10 or 15 skins and they get randomly generated throughout those skins so they can't be the same skin every game would be amazing. It would go a long way to help with a lot of the teaming that's going to happen in this solo finals. Like, we have Higgs and Clicks dropping at OXR, we have Poyo and Peterbot dropping at Rangers, we have Pump and Epic Well dropping at Dystopia. I'm not calling these guys out. Again, this is the POI they know the best. It's the POI they've practiced for the last month in duos. It makes sense they're going to want to drop there in solos. That's fully understandable. And their teammates are doing the same thing. Do I think Poyo and Peterbot are going to duke it out and fight every single game? No. I mean, Poyo and Peterbot might be one of the only duos that actually would, based on how this Div Cup finals went, where they contested each other and did fight every single game. But most of these guys are not going to fight. They're not going to be teaming depends on your definition of teaming. Most of these POIs are massive. They don't need the entire POI's worth of loot. And if they were dropping there against someone who wasn't their duo or wasn't a friend of theirs, they probably wouldn't fight as well. But it's very clear most of these players have picked POIs they know well and their teammates there because they probably know their teammate has a brain and isn't going to fight them every single game. But if you look at the NA or EO drop map, it's literally just duos across the board. You're at a huge disadvantage if your duo didn't qualify for this finals because it's more likely that you're going to get contested and the other player will actually fight you. Again, we'll see how the finals plays out. Social media is going to go crazy. There's going to be a lot of accusations of teaming. I'm just telling you now. There are a few players I obviously have an eye out for. Poyo and Peterbot at range is looking super crazy on NA. I think Craze is going really under the radar. Craze mid-map looking great. Clicks and Higgs, either of those, especially Higgs, could do really, really well. Higgs does usually tend to handle the pressure better when it comes to like big solo games, but Clicks has been looking really, really good in the qualifiers. I would love to see Clicks' first tournament win in solos be now in this finals. It would be insanely exciting to watch. We have Muzz, obviously one of these solo goats. A lot of people expect him to do very well here. Ritual, Ages, like the NA lobby is unbelievably stacked. EU is just as hard to pick as well. I actually think Focus is a player that people should have more of an eye on when it comes to solos. Champ, who is someone I thought would do really well, actually struggled quite a lot in the E-Razor Cup, and it's kind of made me question whether a lot of the conventional fighters are going to play as well in this meta now. Cheeto himself, doing an interview at the E-Razor tournament after he got a win, came out and said, I basically had to change the entire way I play the game because I just can't W key in the early and mid game. It's just too risky. It's too punishing with this new Storm Surge, and it made him have to change up his strategy. So looking at players like Chap, like Flixie, that I did expect to do quite well, who did still go on to do well in E-Razor, I'm a little bit more scared now. So I haven't got a chance to see them yet on NA. I want to see how players who didn't get to play in E-Razor do as well. Fredoxy didn't get to go. He's got a great drop on the mid-map on EU as well. Pablo and Pixie both at OXR. Pixie is one of the most consistent solo players. Vico and Malibuka, again, a current duo, dropping Canyon. They're both looking very, very good across the board as well. So I don't know how to pick EU or NA. I don't really want to do predictions because I'd just be guessing, but this is going to be a fun finals to watch. Taking a look at the NA Duo Finals, this was a super fun one to watch. It is worth mentioning, though, the start of the tournament did have those similar queue issues that the E-Razor Cup had. We had a bunch of players not load in. Poyo didn't load into Game 1. Peterbot didn't load into Game 3. A bunch of big players did miss out, so keep that in mind. But overall, it was a really good tournament. I do want to shout out the winners and gas people up who did really well. As far as the off-spawn goes between Peterbot and Poyo, again, such a weird situation. Peterbot and Josh, and then Poyo and Skittles both made finals and both decided to drop on each other at ranges and fought. Of the 4 games where both teams loaded in, they actually straight up fought. There was no intention to split. They were going at it, and Peterbot won 3 of the 4. Now, Josh held up and played phenomenal. A lot of it came down to obviously who got the gun first, Peterbot or Poyo, when they 50-50. But 2 of the games, they didn't actually 50-50 the same chest. They dropped opposite side. Both those times, Peterbot won as well. It was a super, super fun off-spawn to watch, and it's got people really confused. What is going on with Pete and Poyo? And any other duo, obviously, I'd say, well, they're just going to split up. Like, who plays with someone else and then makes finals and then contests their ex duo if they're just playing for fun? But that is truly what's happening here. Peterbot and Poyo are just like that. I don't understand. Maybe they wanted to practice against each other. I guess they've just made too much money over the last 2 years. Like, I don't know why we're pretending this prize pool doesn't have tens of thousands of dollars on the line, but it was really fun to watch, and I'm not gonna lie, I did enjoy it. And I think it's really, really helped Josh's stocks right now. Josh is gonna be able to line up a phenomenal duo, I feel like, going forward. His biggest issue right now is gonna be the fact that he's on higher ping. He plays on 35 ping from Canada, but it was a really fun off spawn to watch. We didn't get to see it 6 out of 6, and neither Pete and Josh or Poyo and Skittles did very well. Pete and Josh got 16th overall in the tournament, so they didn't go on to have a super crazy tournament anyway, but it was still fun to watch. At the very top, though, I want to give a huge shout out to Evan and Dolzier. Now, Dolzier is a French-Canadian player that you've probably seen a little bit of, been doing really, really well recently, but going super under the radar, as well as Evan, 314 points. They managed to win the last game with 4 eliminations, and that's how they were able to overtake Clicks and Higgs. Clicks and Higgs got a 1 elim 4th. I know, it just writes itself. They played phenomenally well, but right at the very end, if Evan and Dolzier did not win that game, they would have won. Again, Clicks and Higgs getting a 6 elim win in their second last game. Their match history was insane. First game, 3 elim 28th, bit of a rough one, but after that, 3 elim 7th, 3 elim 7th, 4 elim 8th, 6 elim win, 1 elim 4th. Now, that doesn't sound like the craziest match history from Clicks and Higgs, but again, it's worth mentioning, first tournament on the new Storm Surge, and it had a lot of people thrown off. There was a lot of people struggling to adapt, and the better players were able to adapt towards the end end of the tournament and start to bring things back. Evan and Dolzier had one bad game in game 2. They got a 33rd, but outside of that, 1st, 9th, 9th, 10th, and 1st. So 2 wins out of 6 from a very, very underrated team. Then in 3rd place, we had Ark and Kanata, 280 points. They've been so consistent throughout this whole year. They went down a few times. One of the games, Kanata saying that he just wasn't ready for the surge. They were like 200 above. They made one rotate, got hit a little bit, and all of a sudden just plummeted below, and that changed their whole strategy, and they really struggled to get their foot back in, which is what a lot of teams are struggling with. Once you go below, and if it's by like 100 damage, it's really hard because you've now got to deal 100 damage, but also not take any damage in return, which is a lot harder than it sounds, especially on rotating zones. We had Age the Omzo come 4th again. Maybe the last time we're going to see them play together as a duo. They unfortunately did not get a top 3 or the win I think they've been looking for. Ritual and Cold, 5th place overall though as well. They had a very inconsistent match history, a 2nd and a 5th carrying the majority of their points, a 10 Elim 5th. They were definitely fragging out across the board. Then we had Lawrence and Batman Joe, Jargu and King, Taki and Vert, Rapid and Threats, and then Noisy and Tony. So a lot more of the underrated players you wouldn't expect to see inside the top 10. You could say that was due to, you know, all the Q bugs. You could say it was due to the new surge, but honestly, shout out to these guys for adapting and playing better than a lot of our tier 1 pros that I would have expected to maybe handle the new surge a little bit better.